Hello everyone and welcome to Ghost Turd Stories. I'm your host Troy Gent. Ghost Turd Stories' mission is using humorous stories from veterans and first responders to reduce the burden of families whose veteran or first responder committed suicide. Ghost Turd Stories' vision is to use humor from veteran and first responder stories to prevent suicide within our ranks and reduce the burden of families whose veteran or first responder committed suicide. We hoped to attract veterans and first responders, as well as those interested in knowing more about what it's like to be in our shoes while we wear or wore those shoes.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Troy. Today, my guest is Curtis, and he is the brother of Jeff Holt, my real good friend, I'd say best friend from the Marine Corps, who in the early hours of New Year's Day this year committed suicide. And he's the whole reason that I've decided to start this podcast and start the company that's going to be a result of this podcast. Thank you so much, Curtis, for coming, and welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, Troy. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, would you mind telling us what unit you were with, and if you feel comfortable, what time frame?
Sure. I was with 3rd Tracks, so I was with Bravo Company down in 33 area, Del Mar, in 99 to 2004, 98 to 2004, something like that, in that neighborhood. I was a Camp Pendleton guy.
How did that work did you just re-enlist for 2 years kind of a thing? Did you sign up for 6?
Stop loss actually hit me. I was actually home on advanced party back from Japan for like 2 weeks, so we could start prepping to get tracks back and stuff. And, then 9/11 happened. So since we're in the middle of it, we were just like, oh, okay. And they were like, stand by and get ready because you're going back to Japan. And then got an extended tour. Got almost my 5th year in because of stop loss. So
okay. And then what would you decide to do afterward?
Afterward, I did a little bit of everything. I tried going back to school. I don't think I was as serious about it as I wanted to, so I jumped around in junior colleges for a little bit. Then I wound up in Texas, where I took a job doing clinical research. And then I started to take things more seriously. I met my wife doing clinical research for Marines in 29 Palms. They were doing hearing research, and they brought me on as sort of a RA, a helper to record data and just make sure that guys were doing the right thing. So I could talk to them about, signing informed consents and trying to help Marines prevent hearing loss is actually how it all got started. And then I moved out to Texas, and I did clinical research for like 6 years before I got my degree in English, then jumped around and did a couple more random things. And then I ended up here in Virginia, get my teaching credentials in order so I can teach high school English now. It's a far cry from being an Amtracker in the Marine Corps, but it's still a fantastic time.
Awesome. My dad was a English and Spanish teacher for 40 years.
No way. So where at? He
finished in Beaver, Utah.
Oh, yeah.
He taught in Washington and Oregon states. Did you ever tell your high school students any of your stories?
I do tell them a little bit of things. Usually I'll tell them, like, I think I remember pretty early MCT, which is like, you've just finished the little bit of the depot, and then you were actually a grunt, so you had a different thing, right? You didn't do MCT?
I did SOI.
Right, okay. Oh, yeah, okay. So, right. Mine was like a revamped 3-week version of SOI. It's the imitation where everyone's a rifleman. Right? That's right, yeah. Everyone's a rifleman. Everyone's a rifleman first, so you go to the pretend infantry school and you go do the things, and the instructors are great. Everyone was great. I was little. I'm 6'4", 225 now, but coming out of boot camp, I was 6'4", like $155. So.
Oh yeah, you were kind of a bean.
Yeah, so that, and, they fill your head with there's only two kinds of Marines. You're either a Rottweiler or you're a Doberman. You're big and mean, or you're skinny and you're mean. And I was definitely skinny. I don't know that I was mean, but I remember at MCT just trying to outthink problems. We'd go on these like 10-mile hikes or whatever, and I'd be trying to pull my arm through my blouse and tie it off on the ammo can that was filled with cement to try to, just to try and I was like, look, my body can carry the weight, but like my fingers cannot. So this is like the way smarter way to handle this is in my mind.
I've never heard of anybody doing that.
Yeah, I mean, now it came back around and they were just like, you can't do that. But that was in the form of like, you push with the rifle off the ground instead of doing the thing, and then pick up the ammo can with your fingers and, alternate it every 50 yards or however far you could carry it. So,
yeah. When you're in the Marine Corps for like the first year or so, they really don't want you to think so much as they want you just to do what they tell you to do.
Instant willing obedience to orders, dog. Instant willing obedience to orders.
So the idea of you doing things like tying your blouse to the ammo can is like, whoa, this is like way above where you're supposed to be thinking.
And at the time I probably thought that I was real smart because I did okay in the ASVAB, and so I'll tell you this. I had just got to boot camp. Jeff, he was already in for like a year, and so they let you write letters. So on Sunday you do what any good Marine does. You find which is the longest service, and you go and you write your letters, and then they will mail them for you, right? Is that what you did?
Well, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so I'm a Mormon, but the Mormons always had the longest service.
They did have the longest service.
Is that
who I went to. And that, again, was on the recommendation from Jeff. He was like, the service is an extra 30 minutes. He was like, everyone's nice. Like, I grew up in a small town, Spring Creek, Nevada. So there was a real heavy influence from the church, and just fantastic people far and wide. Loved all the experiences from my Mormon friends. But the fact that I could have an extra 30 minutes of time where I was not going to get yelled at, I really appreciated that. And so I would write people letters. And Jeff, he wrote me every week, no matter what. No matter where he was, I got a letter from him every single week. Yeah, he really wanted me to stay motivated and to stay hungry, since we had done so much growing up together. And one day he writes me this letter. And he's like, hey, man, who are your drill instructors? It's a shot in the dark, but like I know a lot of people now. I've been in for, a year and some change, and I might know those guys, so you should tell me who they are. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's Staff Sergeant so-and-so and Staff Sergeant so-and-so and Sergeant so-and-so. I was like, oh, man, this is going to be so awesome if I get friends of the program in here. About 2 weeks later, he wrote the drill instructors individually. And he was like, hey, Staff Sergeant so-and-so, hey, Sergeant so-and-so, this is my brother. I'm with 3-7 or whatever. And he was just like, smoke my brother. And like, yeah. And so I spent the next like week and a half just living on the quarterdeck, just getting smoked just for the fun of it. And they just, and they could not stop laughing about it. They thought it was great. They were just like, we've seen a lot, but like this guy really wants you to be strong. So
I grew up with all sisters, and I had the fortune of being in the Marine Corps infantry for 8 total years, and it was the only time that I was around all men, and so it was like I had countless numbers of brothers for 8 years, and it was an incredible experience. So, and that's what we do with each other. We just mess with each other. We can laugh about anything together, and it's incredible.
Yeah, it's shared misery. I try and tell people it's what shared misery. Shared misery is everything. It will carry you through most adversity if you let it. You got to share in it because you're all going to be up at the same time, doing the same thing, going on the same runs. Those kind of things, they bring you closer together, closer than your average folks.
For sure.
Well, we would go to Cax's, and I was fortunate enough to have a cell phone and be able to get a hold of my brother. So we would link up whenever we could for Caxes, and we would play a joke on his guys or my guys. I would line up some of my younger guys all in formation around him and some of his guys. You know, he was always ranked above me. I think at the time he might have been Corporal Holt or Sergeant Holt when I was just Corporal Hamill, and I would get my guys into formation, and I would sort of explain. I'd be like, yeah, you know, this is, you know, my brother, but different parents or whatever. Jeff was a big guy. He was 6'5", 230 on a bad day. Yeah, he was just a humongous human. You know, he'd go to Zeke's and he'd be holding 50 cal rifles with one in each arm, and he'd send me videos of him shooting them. So he was an enormous human. But I would line up my guys in formation, and then I'd break it down the small school circle, and I'd be like, if you guys really want a good story about this guy, I'm like, go ask him about his brother. His brother was an Olympic push-up champion, and I can't remember exactly how many push-ups he did, but I was like, you go ask Sergeant Holt about that whenever you get a chance.
Are you making this part up, like when you tell him this?
Yeah, so I would be telling my guys, I'd be like, hey, we're going to be working with these guys, but if you want to hear like a cool story where you'll just like, and so I'd have like a couple guys do push-ups so it gets in their brain, you know, I'm planting the seed. And then like, they'd be like, oh man, you know, I could only do, you know, 50, 75, whatever the thing is. I'd be like, yeah, but like, you can't even touch the Olympic level that his brother can do. Eventually somebody would always go ask him. They'd be like, hey man, hey Sergeant, I heard your brother can do a lot of push-ups. My brother would just look him dead in the face and be like, my brother doesn't have any arms. Who told you that? I'm gonna murder you. And like, you would just see the face of fear like you've never seen fear. My screensaver for him is a picture of a guy with no arms. Because I just could not get over the fact that we used to do this back and forth all the time. And he would, you know, sometimes he would do it for his guys. Oh, I found it. If you can still see my camera, there's a guy with no arms on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was...
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we've been running that joke my entire adult life.
That's hilarious. Now, he made threats to him, but did he follow up with anything, push-ups or anything? Or
it was all just scare tactics, and then I would be like, you didn't really ask him about it. I'd be like, go back to the tracks. One time I actually forgot to tell a guy it was a joke, and he stressed about it because we, you know, at CAX you split up with whoever you're with. And so we took off with one unit and my brother with another, and he was just like, oh my God, when we get back, I think your brother might kill me. And he worried about it for like 2 days because we had split up. I didn't have a chance to tell him it was just a joke. So that one lasted for way too long.
Yeah. Yeah. What other crazy stuff did you do?
How do I try and be as PC about this as possible? You know, I spent almost 2 years in Japan.
What base were you on?
Tip of the spear at Camp Schwab. If you remember Camp Schwab. The first time we went there, you do what everybody does. You buy a TV, you buy a VCR back when VHS tapes were still available. And then I'd have people from the States send me, like, I was like, hey, just send me, you know, tape whatever you could. And so people would send me like Dawson's Creek, like the full series on like VHS. And I'd be like, this is perfect. This is just the kind of drama I was looking for. And so you'd watch everything on your TV, and then it'd be time to go home, and you'd have the option to ship your TV home, but then you'd look at it and it cost almost as much as you paid for the TV. So what we'd do is we'd have a couple cocktails, as you might do. Now at Camp Schwab, a little bit different, because unless you're an officer or a staff NCO, you can't buy liquor. You can buy beer, but you can't buy liquor. So there was a staff sergeant that would buy liquor, and we would trade him for beer. He liked beer more than he did liquor, but he had a limit of the beer he could buy, so we would buy whatever the equivalent was. and we would just trade him straight across so that we could have something for the barracks. And then we'd get a couple cocktails deep, and a couple days before we were scheduled to go back home, we would have the TV Olympics. And what we would do at the barracks, we would go up to the top floor, which I think for us was the fourth floor, and we would have, depending on what TV you bought, and we would throw them off the roof. Sometimes for distance, sometimes for spin. I remember we made up a bunch of categories for all the things. It made it a real worthwhile adventure to see your $150 TV fly across a field. We just shatter TVs until we got caught.
We had this guy, and you only do stuff like this if you're drunk. I mean, I guess every once in a while you find someone that's dumb enough to do something like this when they're not drinking. But he got this poncho liner, and he put 2 corners in each hand.
Oh,
and he decided,
no.
I think he was on.
No. Oh, no.
Yeah. So and this is in Camp Schwab. So he decides that he wants to go skydiving out of the 3rd story, and he jumps, and of course the poncho liner doesn't work, and I think he actually broke his back. But oh my gosh,
I mean, I still like a good poncho liner to this day. I will still use one as an all-purpose blanket downstairs, but I can tell you without a doubt they are not parachute friendly. You end up doing a lot of dumb things because when you don't have time to exercise your brain, you fill it with alcohol, and then the bad ideas come. We were doing the planning for what would become the invasion for the Baghdad airport in Yuma, Arizona. There was a base out there. We went and did some things out there, and I remember I got fapped out to be a Humvee driver for an officer, and I was like, cool, this will be fine. And I went with a buddy of mine. He was my A driver. They picked us both to go. And so I was like, oh, you know what? Even though we're not supposed to drink, I'm going to bring something. So I went to the liquor store and got like a big plastic jug of Old Crow. This is like the worst possible thing. I was like, I'm not going to spend money in this because I don't know how long it's going to be in the sun or whatever. So I remember we rolled it in our sleeping bags and took it with us. And probably like the first night we were out there, it had gotten so hot it cracked and leaked all over my sleeping bag system. When we stopped, I told my buddy, I was like, oh my God, we're about to get NJP'd.
You hadn't drank at all.
It just leaked all over. But like the back of my Humvee, I got the sir back there, and I'm like, oh, all right, sir, well, we got your spot. And like, so I have to like jerry rig, tie my sleeping bag like underneath the thing, like find a way to throw away the broken thing of Old Crow.
When were you planning on drinking that?
Part of our deal was like every day we had to set up the CP for all these bigwigs. So after we'd done setting up, they'd give us some free time. We were not necessary personnel. We were Amtrackers who happened to be, Humvee licensed.
Were you given libo, or just you were in the field still, but you were just doing whatever you wanted?
Yeah, we were still in the field, and we were just like, we'll bring 2 things, and we'll see what happens.
Was it authorized, or was it like you were?
We were sneaking it for sure.
Okay.
We were sneaking it. We were. Then I had to sleep just with my poncho liner. That's why it's probably my best friend still, is because I couldn't use my sleeping system. We decided to do a company smoker. You guys ever throw any smokers?
I've never heard that term.
Like boxing matches. Again, when you're bored at the barracks, this is what you're going to do. So we set up boxing matches. So we got 2 sets of boxing gloves. We had 4 or 6 pairs of boxing gloves for some reason. My buddy goes, I just want to spar a little bit. So we go back to his room, and I'm like, all right, I think I'm tough stuff. So I'm throwing a little here, throwing a little there, and touched him up with a jab, and he came around with like a left cross, and he turned my lights out. And I remember waking up, trying to tune him up for his fight, and he got tired beating me up in his room.
We would do a bull in the ring a lot. They would just say, hey, there's no punching in the face, but everything else pretty much was go. So
One of the most scared times ever in my life was going to your barracks in 29 Palms and just watching the kid from Montana who was a state wrestling champion
Chris,
just
yeah.
coats and just watching him like that dude went through like 10 people that day and was just looking for more. Like he beat up Jeff. I mean, he beat up everyone I saw that night.
He beat all of us up, dude.
I could not. I'd never seen a dude just run through that many people.
Chris, he went to combat later to Iraq with the National Guard unit, but September 11th happened a month before I got out the first time. So Chris never saw combat, and he just liked to fight anyway. But I mean, he was releasing some aggression by I'll fight everybody every day. I don't care. I just want to fight.
There are some MMA guys that don't have as many fights as that guy had. I feel like that guy was scrapping daily.
Every time I see him, I try to pick a fight with him, and he won't fight with me anymore. He's going to listen to this. I actually already interviewed him, so he's got, I think, 4 or 5 daughters, and he's got one son. And his son walks up behind him, who's like, I think he's 8 now. He'll just punch him in the back of the head. So,
does it feel like payback? Feel like payback?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
I bet he could still sling it. I bet.
Oh, he could. He could if he wanted to.
I've been using Isagenix since 2017. These products have made a world of difference in my quality of life, health, energy, muscle definition, strength, and endurance. My bread and butter products have been the Daily Essential multivitamins with Isagenesis, which is a telomere support supplement, the Isolane meal replacement shake, the Tri-Release protein shake, the collagen, the green drink, and the Cleanse for Life support system. However, Isagenix has many products and can cater to your unique lifestyle and goals. Click the link in the show notes or visit nmp.isagenix.com. That's nmp.isagenix.com to find out more. Besides just using the products, there is an option to partner with me and the company to build your own business with no capital up front. You can do as little as pay for your products and as much as making a full-time income. I love these products and will use them the rest of my life. You can also message me if you have any questions.
I mean, you're a big human too. What are you walking around at? Like you're a pretty big dude.
I'm about 240 right now, so I'm pretty heavy into the weights.
I'll try and use my jujitsu, so next time I see you, we'll get the mats out and we'll do it safely.
Oh, you'll smoke me, dude.
That's the only way I ever beat my brother in my entire life. 2 Christmases ago on the kitchen floor. Right? The only time I've ever beat him in my entire life. It's funny to see when brothers get together still act like they're 10 years old. He came to visit me in San Diego, and he was staying at my house in the gas lamp. I went to a special boutique store at one of the malls, and I got a thing called Da Bomb hot sauce. It used to be the hottest thing you could find. Now they've got stuff way hotter. But I brought this stuff home, and I was like, hey, man, I'm making some bacon and eggs. And I was like, I got this sauce, but it's almost like a joke because it's so hot. And he was like, don't be shy. He's like, I can take it. I put like a couple drops in this thing, and he's like, no, a little more. So I gave him like a little squirt, and he takes a bite of this egg and cheese burrito. Then he's just living with ice in his mouth for the next, and he's like tears in his eyes, like he can't stand it. He's just like, oh my God. He's like, you have to try it. And I was like, I will not try it. I was like, I bought this stuff to not try it. And he was like, well, you will try it or I will make you try it. And I was just like, oh, listen, I got to drive back to base right now. And he was like, you're going to try it. He held me down, unscrewed the top, and just rubbed it in my lips and in my gums and in my mouth. And I was just like, oh my God. And so now I am living underneath the sink. Those things are oil based. So you have to use like Dawn dishwashing stuff to get it off. We laughed about it, and We were going out that night. So I put the Da Bomb hot sauce in my cargo pants and took it with us to the bar. And my brother went to the bathroom and I got it out and I put a bunch inside of his beer and I put it around the inside rim of his beer bottle. And when he got back, I did the thing where you just like, you click the top, and I was like, cheers, brother, I love you. I hit the top of his beer so it would start to foam, so he had to just shoot it back. And he gave me a look mid-beer that was like, okay, I earned this one. He was still almost throwing up at the bar, but it was not as bad as it was when we were at the house earlier, so... Well, the real joke was on me later. So because I wiped it off with some napkins. We laughed about it and we kept going on about our day. But eventually, you got to use the restroom. And like I said, it's oil based. And so it stays on you. And I went pee later and, I come back from the head and I'm just like, God, is it hot in here? Or is it just my nether regions? And I had forgot to like wash my hands pre-bathroom. And so I was just like, oh, I ended up getting myself. I've got a notebook here where I'm just like checking them off as I can half remember them. I'm trying to remember every stupid $20 tattoo I got.
Yeah, what's the stupidest tattoo you saw someone get?
Well, we were told not to get one when we went to Thailand, and we found a guy who was like, he's like, I'll do whatever you want for $20. And so I was like, that's a done deal. I was like, put the Grim Reaper right on my back. I'm still like a 170-pound guy, very little. So there I was with the Grim Reaper on my back for $20. I think he did a good job at the time, but that thing has stretched out since then. And so now he's like the Grimpaw Reaper. So he's a lot bigger. He's a lot older. Now I'm looking for cover up, which is going to cost me way more than $20. Did you get any tattoos? Are you a tattoo guy, or did you manage to get out with none?
I managed to get out with zero. I bought Black Sabbath tickets in Vegas to take my sister to the concert. My sister is 13 years older than me. And this was in, oh gosh, it must have been 99 or something. She was like, I want to go to a tattoo parlor and I want a tattoo eventually. I want to see if maybe I'll find what I want. So, and at that time I was thinking maybe I should get a tattoo. What would I want? This and that. I went in there, and the dude that was doing tattoos, he was bald, and his whole head was tattooed, and his face was tattooed. And I looked at him like, I'm never getting a tattoo ever. So that was my only time that I considered it, a brief amount of time. But
I think the irony is the guy who gave me a tattoo had no tattoos.
He was just doing it because military deployments there all the time, and he's like, I can do a business, I can start a business here. So
I mean, he was a good artist. Oh man, okay. You want a tattoo story? I got one. I just thought of this just now. Oh man, one of these guys would kill me. I'll tell him that we're going to talk about it. We had an artist in our unit, and like I said, we got stuck on the rock in Japan for almost 2 years. One of the guys who was really good at art is like, I'm going to order a tattoo gun off this, it wasn't website back then. You had to mail it in or whatever. And he was like, I'm going to order the kit and it's going to come. And he's like, I'm going to need practice canvases. So he was like, free tattoos are on their way. And so sure enough, weeks go by and he gets his kit. He would sketch them out and then practice on his own thighs and his legs, and he starts giving away free tattoos. Oh, we had one guy that had USMC get on his chest or whatever, and it was okay. It wasn't great, but and then we had a guy, and he says, "I want propellers on my butt cheeks." And he was like, because when it's time for me to get intimate, I want to be able to go to let them know that the motor's working. If you've never had a tattoo, one of the things you have to do is you have to make sure that the area you're about to tattoo is clean. We had all gathered in this room, and I remember never laughing so hard in my life because we had to shave this guy's ass because he couldn't do it on his own, and we were about to put propellers on there. And I will say, though, after it was done, I would say the propellers were some of his best work up to that point. I mean, he had done some other stuff that was okay, but those propellers were actually pretty legit, and they looked just like boat propellers.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. The dumbest one I heard of was a Marine that didn't want to spend the money. He wanted it to look like he had pistols in
Oh,
his belt
no.
when he had his shirt off. So he got tattoos of pistols. Basically, it looked like they were hanging out of his belt buckle in his pants, but he didn't want to spend the money to get the whole pistol drawn. So he only had half the pistols. So when he took his pants off, there was only half a pistol on each side versus.
You know, that's going to be a conversation starter wherever you go. You're always going to be able to pull your shirt up just a little bit and be like, don't make me pull this thing out. Because there's only half of it. You make so many mistakes when you're in, and most of them involve alcohol.
I was an exception to that rule because I think in 8 years I drank twice while I was in the Marine Corps, and I did a lot of stupid stuff. I was the guy that did the stupid stuff regularly.
But I mean, you saved thousands of dollars, though. Just so you know, you saved lots of money.
I had so much fun. I had the ability to do crazy stuff and stupid stuff without really getting in trouble for it.
That's an incredible talent to have.
Yeah, I was that guy. Like, no, Jent's not drinking. That's just who Jent is. I was like that in high school, and my daughters have grown to accept who their father is, and actually, for the most part, enjoy it because it's funny to them. But I have a lot more tact strategically because I've matured and been more concerned with other people, but I still haven't lost that sense of humor. So
most Marines I know, we're all pretty dark humans. When it comes to humor, we're just like kill something every day, no matter how small, just to maintain proficiency. We're in a darker place, and we're okay with that.
I got this friend that is in business here locally, and he owns a pest control company. He calls himself the pest assassin, and he's a Marine, but he's like, I just got to carry on. Like he uses his Marine mentality to kill bugs.
One spray, one kill. Like he's just very. I can appreciate that. It. There's a Marine Corps plumbing business here, and they're the only plumbers that we use whenever we've messed up enough at our house to do it. It's great to support Marines again. And again, I can't thank you enough for putting this together. It's such a great thing. I'm so pleased that it struck you in the way that it did, and I'm just so thankful that you're on this journey, Troy.
Appreciate that, Curtis. Yeah, we're going to do great things with this, and appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's so important. I don't think people talk about it enough. When people are stressed out, life comes at you a bunch of different ways, and you know, when you're a first responder, you're a veteran, like it's tough to get through. I don't think enough of us lean on each other like we should, or sit down and talk enough. We got to be okay with talking about feelings and writing things down and trying to make things better. We're all people, and we're all living on this spinning rock, and we're trying to get it all figured out, and it's not easy for everyone. I'm so thankful for everyone that does reach out, and I love it when it does work. Hopefully you can reach enough people or someone whenever they're in need to make a difference, brother.
I heard a quote just 2 nights ago. He said that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, connection to other human beings. And I really just hope that this can connect people that have had similar experiences so that we can hopefully save some lives, you know.
In order to really live your life, you have to connect with people, and I hope people decide to connect.
Well, thanks so much, Curtis. Have a great night and a great week.
I will. You do the same, Troy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Please tell your friends and family so that we can bring more joy and awareness to those struggling with suicide ideation and the families who desperately need help after the loss of someone they love to suicide.